Hi there, welcome back to Money IQ. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Toyosi. If you're regular, my name is Toyosi. And thank you again for joining us. And if you don't know, we are just a community. Our goal is to help one another, build up one another, and make ourselves better versions of ourselves. So I can't believe it's actually the third month in 2021 already. So I'll take a pause and ask, how are you doing with your money goals? Are they better than you anticipated? Do you need to make changes? You need to reevaluate and adjust. Don't forget, catch up on our other videos on budgeting, getting out of debt and savings, and also setting very clear and smart financial or even goals generally. Do let us know how you're doing. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and of course, drop us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's anything else you'd like to hear from us. So, let's get to today's topic. Now, this is something that a lot of people asked me about when I said I was starting a YouTube channel, because that's what everybody wants to know about: investment. So today we're going to be talking about investments. Should you be investing? What are the principles of investment? What type of investments can I take on? And things like that. Hopefully the session is as helpful to you as it is to me. So let's start with the dictionary definition of investment, or maybe what we can define investment as. I guess investment is putting money, time, effort into something and expecting a reward. You understand? It could be a relationship, it could be money into securities or stocks, it could be time in learning a craft, so that you can build new skills. Whatever way it is, investment is putting in something with an expected return. Now, of course, because we have been talking in the last 3 months about money, we're going to draw this back to money. So I guess the first question we should be asking really is investment for me? Now, if your money goal this year was, oh, I want to invest more, I guess I would say take a pause and ask this question. Now, I would say investment isn't for everybody. Remember last time we talked about how saving isn't for everybody. Like if you're in debt, you shouldn't consider saving. Now, I would say if you have not built up an emergency fund or a long-term fund, or a short-term fund, you shouldn't be investing. The thing is, investment is quite a risky thing. I would say the first principle of investment is you need to have some form of disposable cash. Do you understand? Like, how can I explain this? You need to be willing to put in the amount of money that you can lose for an investment. Of course, we're going to get into details of different types of investment because, again, this varies across different countries, which have different security instruments, which have different investment type. But the principle still remains, right? You should be willing to put in how much you can lose, which is why I say, if you've not saved yet, then investment isn't it. Another key principle of investment that we tend to forget is investment should be a long-term thing. Oftentimes, a lot of people invest in like short-term financial instruments that you can see goals quickly, like T-bills, especially for those in Nigeria and America, where you have these instruments that give you a quick reward. But actually, investment is meant to be something long term. Generally, people would advise that if you have a long term money goal that is over 5 years, ideally, actually, you should put that money in some form of investment so that you can get some reward. Generally investment rewards are greater than your savings account. So you should put them in something which gives you some form of reward in return rather than just keeping it saving. So remember, do not put money that you cannot afford to lose in investment. An investment isn't a short-term thing, it is long-term. Okay, so those are the two things that you should consider. Now, again, if you haven't saved enough, if you don't have those funds, those emergency funds, the long-term funds, stay off investing. Investing isn't for everyone. It's okay if you have enough savings, your savings are secure. It's okay if an emergency comes up and you have money to cover, because investments do not liquidate as quickly as you would expect them to. In some cases, maybe the time you want them to liquidate might not be the right time for that to happen. So you have to think about all those things and take a step back and ask yourself, is investment the right thing for me? I hope that's helpful. Now, the next thing you will want to think about again is, okay, how much should I be putting aside? And how best is it for me to go about investing? Now, of course, remember one key thing we always say on this channel is budgeting. You need to know how much is coming in and how much is coming out. And as we've mentioned, generally investment is the cash that you can dispose of, right? But how would you know the cash you can dispose of if you're not budgeting properly? So you need to know what you have, what your expenses are, and see how much is left and how much you can afford to invest. So there isn't generally a set rule of how much is good for an investment, but things that you should know before you make an investment decision. One, do your research. Oftentimes, what I've noticed is people tend to just gamble and make decisions of investment because, oh, my friend invested in Bitcoin and it's profitable. Well, your friend probably invested off hearing of a friend. So I would say, one, do your research. You need to know what you're investing in, whether security, whether property, whether Bitcoin, whether commodity, whether investing in a company and being a shareholder. Make sure you do your research. Understand where the company is coming from, where they're going to, or where they're at this point. And make sure you're making wise decisions. In as much as it is money that you probably can part away from. The goal of an investment, right, is to make gains and profits in the long term. It's important to add here that that doesn't always happen all the time. Sometimes investments are super, super risky. Sometimes you can lose everything, and sometimes you can gain more. A lot of people will tell you, "Oh, I invested in Apple 10 years ago, and now my value is tripled." But you see, that's just one in a million. Trust me. So you need to make sure you're doing your research and making the right decision based on research and not necessarily word of mouth. Two, you need to pick an instrument that works for you that you want to invest in. Are you thinking about quick liquidation? Are you looking at bigger reward? So those are the things that you need to think about. Okay, are you trying to think about quick access to money, in 5 years when you need it? Or is what's important to you the reward that you get? When you know which one matters to you, you can make a better informed decision you know about investing. Now, for example, things like government bonds, they be more stable, they be more guaranteed, so you can get your money, but the reward is little. Whereas things like shares, they be more long term, but if you wait for a while, you will gain a lot. You can gain through dividends, you can gain through company growing. So things like that is what you want to carefully consider before you make an investment decision. Now, one thing again to know about investing is you should diversify. Do not put your eggs in one basket with investment. I know one of the principles we shared earlier was you should actually have little accounts, but actually the opposite is the case with investment. You should actually diversify your portfolio as much as you can if you want to make a decision about investing. Why? Because investment is risky and it's important for you to spread your risk. So when you make a decision about investing, I would say try and find what other thing you can invest in just to balance that risk. Remember, investments are not short term, they are long term, and you have to be in it for the long run. Also, one important thing, I know I've said so many important things here. Another key thing to stress with investment is the higher the risk, the greater the reward. So if you're not a risk taker, you need to find instruments that are more suitable for you or forms of investment that are more suitable for you. So I guess the question is, so what type of things can I invest in? I mentioned already earlier things like T-bills. Unfortunately for us in the UK, we don't have such short-term instruments like T-bills and other things like that are available for those in America or for those in Nigeria. But for those in those countries, those are like short-term instruments that allow you gain quick and faster reward. Again, remember I said that government bonds or bonds generally provide you less reward, but they're less risky. So, looking for quick cash in the next 1 year, that's something good to kind of invest in. But one thing you should remember, and I'm sure if you're investing in T-bills, you would know most times you get your profit ahead. So is it really a form of investment? I will let you decide. But that's one instrument people tend to use to kind of invest. So other types of instruments, you got things like shares and stock, like a lot of us know. You've got bonds, you've got commodities, you've got properties, you've got funds. I guess funds is one that people generally don't know about, but funds is you come together with a pool of people and you decide to invest in things. But I guess for guys in the UK, some investments that, especially if you're just a beginner and you're not so comfortable yet, something you might consider is ISA, especially because your interest tends to be tax free. So try, if you're considering investing, that's what something you can kind of look into. And generally ISAs tend to be a pool of security rather than one. So spreading your risk as well. Property is also something good, although it's quite capital intensive, which is something else you have to consider when with investment. How much money do I really have to invest? Do I have £20 a month, or do I have a huge lump sum, which property would be very good for? I am personally a fan of property investment because property value would always go high, except you decide to buy a house by the cliff. But things like that, it would always increase. It is one guaranteed form of investment. Yes, it's not as liquid. Again, remember, risk versus reward is not as easily liquid as the other forms of investment, but it is guaranteed to give you profits. Now, other forms of investment that we tend not to think about, but are actually investment, is investing in a friend's company or someone's company. I mean, I feel like nowadays you don't really hear a lot about crowdfunding a business and things like that, but those were good forms of investment. Owning a share in a company where you get to benefit from the profits. Other things that people don't think about is actually jewelry, expensive watch, artwork and wine. You will find a lot of big companies actually invest in art because you know if you actually, let me take a step back. If you look a lot about a big company's portfolio, you will find a lot of their assets is in buildings, artwork and things like that, because those things actually generate a lot more profit over the long run. So if you've got cash lying about big enough, those are actually things to kind of consider for yourself. Investing in wine, investing in jewelry, gold, precious stones. Those are things that people tend not to think about, but they're actually good sources of investment. Gold is something that will always go up, isn't it? Even when all prices crash, gold is there. You'll find people who pay so much money to try and mine gold so that they can resell it. Yes, gold is a good form of investment. So those are types of investment that we tend not to think about. I was talking earlier about funding a company or investing in an upcoming company. Buying, cashing young, be a shareholder. Of course, do your research, make sure it's a viable company, but become a shareholder, tap into it so that when the company becomes big, you can sell your shares. Remember, investment isn't for everyone, and if you decide to invest, remember that risk versus reward. And remember, you are in it for the long term and not just for 5 minutes or 1 year. So you have to be ready to stick to it and put in money that you can afford to lose, because sometimes investment doesn't work out. I hope that's really helpful. If you think there's anything else that I've missed or anything else that you can add, if you have any questions about investment, don't forget to drop us a comment and continue to like, share and subscribe. See you next time and take care. Bye.